RK62, Finland. Bitter winter conditions turned small parts into liabilities, so Finland demanded a rifle that would keep running when snow, ice, and mud tried to jam everything that moves. Independence mattered in the same breath. Reliance on foreign suppliers was a strategic weakness, and the Soviet AK-47 offered a proven baseline that could be adapted to Finnish tactics and ergonomic preferences. Valmet studies in the late 1950s and early 1960s narrowed the goal to a clean combination of Kalashnikov reliability and improved accuracy plus ergonomics for disciplined marksmanship. The operating system stayed stubbornly simple. A long-stroke gas piston drives the carrier, a rotating bolt locks the breech, and the whole package tolerates dirt and imperfect lubrication. Finnish engineers then focused on what the shooter touches: a tubular steel shoulder stock, a plastic handguard, and a rear sight moved back onto the receiver cover to extend sight radius for better practical accuracy. Some variants omit the trigger guard, so mittens can still reach the trigger, a tiny design detail that reads like a climate report. It remains a 7.62 by 39 rifle, roughly 3.1 kilograms, with a 16.5-inch barrel that keeps handling compact without giving up service rifle reach. Sustainment follows the same logic as the design brief. Modern furniture and optic mounting extend usefulness. Depot rebuilds protect the fleet, and domestic production keeps spares and refurbishment in Finnish hands well into the 2030s. An AK skeleton, tuned for cold hands and careful shooting. Switzerland, SIG SG 550. Replacing the SG 510, the STGW57 meant shedding weight and moving to NATO 5.56 by 45 while keeping Swiss expectations for accuracy. Alpine conditions impose their own cruelty, so the rifle had to prove itself in snow and mud testing before it earned trust. The requirement list also cared about flexibility. A militia force benefits from one platform that can cover standard infantry use and deliberate, supported fire without constant retraining. A short-stroke gas piston pushes a rotating bolt head, keeping the receiver cleaner and recoil behavior predictable. The gas cylinder sits above the barrel under the handguard, and a gas plug offers settings for normal and adverse conditions when fouling or cold friction show up. A folding skeleton stock improves carry and storage, and an integrated folding bipod signals that stable, supported fire is part of the design intent. Transparent polymer magazines clip together, so two magazines can be paired in a clean, repeatable way without tape tricks. The diopter sighting system matches the national bias toward careful sight alignment. Expect a rifle around 4.1 kilograms, about a meter long, feeding from 20-round and 30-round polymer magazines. Support philosophy is pure Switzerland. Domestic manufacture, tight consistency, and parts life measured in decades, with cost accepted as the price of predictability. A militia rifle that behaves like a precision tool even after sitting quietly for months. Sweden, AK-5. NATO standardization around 5.56 by 45 pushed Sweden toward a new service rifle, and domestic production mattered for supply security. The Belgian FNFNC provided a proven base that already met subarctic reliability needs, and Sweden then refined it around a conscription reality. The rifle had to be teachable fast, maintainable with minimal fuss, and usable with winter gloves during long training cycles. The internal layout stays simple and rugged. A gas piston system runs the action with tolerance for dirt, then Swedish changes target the human interface. The trigger guard and charging handle grow large enough for heavy gloves, and the handguard expands to protect hands from cold metal. The original 3-round burst feature disappears, removing complexity from the fire control group and simplifying instruction under fatigue. Later versions add a collapsible stock to fit body armor, vehicle carry, and a wider range of body sizes without turning the rifle into a different manual of arms. In service, it sits near 3.8 kilograms, chambered for 5.56 by 45, and it plays well with Stan-AG magazines, which matters every time ammunition and magazines move across units or borders. The AK-5C update adds rails and adjustable stocks so optics and accessories become standard gear without rewriting the training book. Fleet life is managed through upgrades rather than replacement, steady depot work, stable spares, and incremental modernization that keeps the rifle current while the system stays familiar. Built for gloves, mud, and conscripts who need a rifle that forgives mistakes. South Korea K2. Licensing restrictions and high costs pushed the Republic of Korea to build its own service rifle after relying on United States-supplied M16s. Scale drove every decision. The platform had to equip huge active and reserve forces, hold up across humid summers and freezing winters, and stay manufacturable at volume without exotic processes. A 5.56x45 chambering kept compatibility with Allied ammunition and training standards. The mechanism takes a pragmatic hybrid path. An AK-style long-stroke piston drives a rotating bolt, supporting reliability when maintenance standards vary or the environment gets filthy. Controls and ergonomics lean toward the AR family, easing transition for troops accustomed to M16 handling. The charging handle sits on the right, and the selector layout feels familiar, reducing retraining time across a force where every extra hour multiplies into years of manpower. Modern variants, including the K2C and K2C1, add Picatinny rails for optics and accessories as infantry doctrine shifts toward optic-led work. As a 5.56x45 rifle, it lands around 3.3 kilograms, feeds from Stan AG magazines, and cycles at roughly 750 rounds per minute, a balance that stays controllable while still giving expected service rifle volume of fire. Modern variants add rails and stock options, reflecting the shift toward optic-led work. Sustainment is the strategic payoff. Domestic production secures parts, standard magazines simplify supply, and modernization can happen without breaking the core platform. A mass army requirement translated into a piston rifle with familiar switches and national scale behind it. Japan Howa Type 89. Japan wanted to move away from the heavier 7.62 Type 64 as doctrine shifted, and NATO adoption of 5.56x45 made lighter ammunition loads attractive. The intent was simple and physical: reduce rifle weight and let soldiers carry more rounds. Policy added tight constraints, including export restrictions and limited budgets, so the rifle had to be domestically producible and cost-aware inside a protected market. Small production runs also meant every design choice had to earn its keep, because there was no export volume to spread cost. The Type 89 uses a short-stroke gas piston with a rotating bolt and draws heavily from the AR-18 pattern. The selector supports safe, semi-automatic, and 3-round burst, and later variants adopt full automatic fire. Sheet metal construction reduces weight and manufacturing cost, and the package includes an integral bipod and muzzle brake, reflecting a design that expects controlled, supported fire in addition to basic rifle work. Some models add rails for optics, but the design remains conservative, prioritizing repeatable handling and predictable recoil over radical modularity. It weighs about 3.5 kilograms and feeds 5.56x45 from 20-round and 30-round magazines. The handling philosophy stays conservative, favoring consistent recoil behavior and predictable operation over aggressive modularity. Support considerations are where the constraints bite. Limited volume and export bans keep unit cost high and slow accessory evolution, while domestic manufacture preserves sovereignty and parts continuity. Some specialized units adopt foreign rifles for ergonomics, yet the Type 89 remains the standard solution that fits Japan's policy box. Engineers worked inside a tight policy frame and still delivered a practical service rifle. Colt Canada C7. Replacing the C1, Canada's FNFAL-based service rifle required a shift to NATO 5.56 standards without sacrificing cold weather reliability. Canada licensed the AR family design and then treated it as a starting point, applying more than 150 modifications aimed at durability and Arctic performance. Compatibility with NATO magazines and accessories stayed central because sustainment depends on common parts as much as clever engineering. A rifle that shares ammunition and fails in snow still fails the mission. The C7 remains in the AR-15 and M16 lineage with direct impingement gas operation. Diamaco, later Colt Canada, strengthened key components including barrel and stock, and applied a chrome-lined bore to resist corrosion and wear from moisture and aggressive cleaning. The charging handle stays non-reciprocating, preserving familiar handling, and the straight-line recoil path helps controllability by reducing muzzle rise. The design changes focus on tolerance for harsh conditions and long service cycles while keeping the manual of arms steady across generations. In its service configuration, it sits near 3.3 kilograms, carries a 508mm barrel, and runs on 5.56x45 with Stan-AG magazines. Later variants add rails and adjustable stocks as optics become standard infantry equipment, keeping the manual of arms stable while capability grows. Support logic leans on two pillars: domestic manufacture for spares and refurbishment, and global AR familiarity for training and interoperability. Direct gas operation rewards maintenance discipline, so doctrine and inspection routines matter more than with many piston rifles. An Allied standard rifle that got Canadianized for cold, corrosion, and long service life. FB Beryl, the DZ-96. NATO accession forced Poland to solve an inventory problem that was also a training problem. Warsaw Pact rifles and ammunition had to shift toward NATO 5.56x45. The Army wanted a rifle that preserved AK pattern familiarity, so retraining could happen quickly, while still delivering modern mounting options for optics and accessories. That pressure produced the WZ-96 FB Beryl as a bridge between standards. The mechanism stays close to the AKM playbook. A long-stroke gas piston drives a rotating bolt, and the manual of arms remains familiar to troops trained on Kalashnikov patterns. Modern elements appear where they add capability without rewriting training habits. Improved grips, open sights with tritium inserts for day and night, and an integrated rail system that supports optics. The rifle can launch rifle grenades using live ammunition, avoiding special blank-only procedures, and stock options include fixed and folding telescopic formats to support different carry and vehicle needs. Cyclic rate sits around 700 rounds per minute, with a muzzle velocity near 920 meters per second in 5.56x45, and burst modes exist on some variants. Logistics reflects bridge design thinking. AK-like handling speeds retraining, built-in rails simplify upgrades, and versions in multiple calibers share many parts, helping sustainment and export practicality. NATO ammo, AK instincts, and Polish rails in one silhouette. SAR 21. Dense jungle and cramped urban work punished long rifles, so Singapore set a blunt requirement in the 1990s, a compact bullpup that could be manufactured locally and include a built-in optic plus a laser aiming device. The existing mix, including the license-produced M16S1 and the locally developed SAR-80, left too much length and too little integration for the roles Singapore prioritized. Development began around 1995, and the rifle entered service in 1999. The design uses a gas-operated action inspired by the Stoner AR-18 and packages it in a bullpup layout, placing the action behind the trigger. That shortens overall length while keeping barrel length, an advantage for vehicles, stairwells, and narrow corridors. A high-impact polymer shell reduces weight and resists the rough handling of humid environments. A translucent magazine makes ammunition checks visual. Early models carried an integral 1.5 power optic and a battery-powered laser module built into the carry handle, locking the sighting system into the rifle as a standard rather than a choice. Weight is about 4 kilograms at roughly 805 millimeters long, with a carbine form around 640 millimeters, firing at roughly 450 to 650 rounds per minute. Local production enabled iterative refinement, including a lighter A model and integrated optics simplified training by standardizing the sighting system early in service. Bullpup geometry turned tight terrain into manageable corners. CZ 805 Bren. After joining NATO in 1999, the Czech Republic needed a modern rifle to replace the VZ-58 and align with alliance standards. The Ministry of Defense wanted domestic manufacture, modularity across roles such as rifle and carbine, and fully ambidextrous controls to fit diverse user profiles. Development began in the mid-2000s under Project 805, with those requirements driving the architecture instead of being tacked on later. That mindset treated optics and accessories as expected equipment from the start. The operating system uses a short-stroke piston, driving a rotating bolt. Controls lean modern. A side-mounted, non-reciprocating charging handle, ambidextrous selector, and ambidextrous magazine release. Multiple Picatinny rails treat optics and accessories as baseline. Modularity is structural, with an aluminum alloy upper receiver and a polymer lower, and the system supports caliber conversion between 5.56 by 45 and 7.62 by 39 through barrel and component changes. A 3-position gas regulator supports suppressed use and adverse conditions, keeping the rifle cycling when back pressure or fouling shifts the operating window. Weight sits around 3.4 kilograms with a 360mm barrel, feeding from Stan AG magazines, with a cyclic rate around 750 rounds per minute. Logistics rewards domestic capacity. Local manufacture provides supply security, and the later Bren 2 remains parts compatible, protecting investment in spares and support equipment. A modular platform only pays off when the spare parts story stays simple. Modularity backed by a national supply chain hits differently. IMBEL IA2. Brazil's armed forces ran a mixed rifle ecosystem, including FNFAL variants, M16A2s, HK33s, and IMBEL MD97s, and that variety complicates training and spares. In the early 2010s, the government sought a single family of domestically produced modular rifles that could replace disparate systems while handling jungle humidity, urban operations, and long border patrols. Versions in both 5.56 and 7.62 mattered because different units carried different missions and legacy magazines. The IA2 is gas-operated with a rotating bolt and draws from earlier IMBEL work, while reshaping the platform around modern ergonomics. The layout stays conventional with an adjustable stock and an oversized trigger guard. Ambidextrous controls sit on both sides of the receiver, and the charging handle moves to the left so right-handed shooters can maintain firing grip while running the action. A long top Picatinny rail plus additional rails near the muzzle support optics, lights, and a grenade launcher. External cues, such as the muzzle device and the ejection deflector, show the influence of established service rifle patterns while keeping the action tuned for Brazilian environments. The 5.56 version weighs about 3.2 kilograms with a 440mm barrel and uses 30-round magazines. The 7.62 model uses 20-round FNFAL magazines, leveraging existing inventory. Logistics was the whole point. A trial order in 2012 led to 20,000 rifles, and a single family simplified training, parts, and maintenance while supporting domestic industry. One family, one spares pipeline, fewer surprises. If you enjoyed this video, consider giving it a like and sharing it with other firearm enthusiasts. Don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into some of the most interesting guns ever made. And if there's another gun manufacturer or topic you'd like us to cover next, let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching.